Welcome to NC Political Tea, the show where North Carolina's political scene gets served piping hot, grassroots style. We're here to shake up the status quo with unapologetically conservative takes and a whole lot of Southern charm. From the halls of Congress to under the dome, we're exposing the deals, the drama, and the dirt that the mainstream media won't touch. Who's fighting for your freedom? Who's selling out to the woke mob? And who's about to get roasted? No fluff, no filters, and absolutely no time for spineless politics. Just bold Republican commentary, sharp analysis, and enough sass to make the left squirm. So grab your sweet tea or something stronger, and let's dive into the hottest headlines and juiciest scandals rocking the Tar Heel State. This is NC Political Tea, where the truth always gets served.
Hey, happy spring break week. How are you?
Is it spring break for y'all?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not. I don't have any kids at home, so I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's the week after Easter. How was your Easter, dear?
It was great. We had ham and devil, all that stuff that you have.
Right.
Eggs and a sheep that
Yep.
a baby lamb looking cake.
You ever eat like turkey for?
No, that's Thanksgiving or Christmas. Us Protestants, we eat the ham shit on down here.
Eat the ham. Go right for the holiday ham.
I know. No, they could have just given me the bacon. I would have been fine.
Well, that's how we are in North Carolina. Bacon. I mean, a lot of people. We do turkey bacon, so that's good. It's all good. Our Passover is finally over, so the first thing we had was pizza. Had to have it.
Oh, really? Pizza and gummy bears?
Gummy bears. Hey, look, that's kosher, and that's I can have it during Pesach. That's not
Really?
Yeah.
So gummy bears, pizza, and Skittles water.
Today, guys, I've got no straw, but I've got lemon water. So
Lemon water.
Well, Tara put so much guilt into us last week about the additives, the fake color, all that, and Skittles water. So I'm sticking with water today.
No, I'm not going to be guilted into drinking anything I don't want to drink.
Water's good. Water and lemon is good, but we got a big agenda for tonight. It's all about education. And so we've been focused really a lot on crime in K through 12 in North Carolina, because
there's a lot of it.
It seems like it's getting worse. And the Democrats tell us to believe all teachers. All teachers are sacrosanct. Of course, cops are bastards and things like that, right? But all teachers walk on water. Well, we're going to see tonight that's not exactly true.
It's mostly not true.
Somewhat not true. Yeah. So this is just actually a smattering. This is a sample that I got from just news reports.
Indecent liberties with a child. Oh my gosh.
In the last month, this guy, I know it's a really horrific story out of Johnson County. It's terrible. Deputy said that this chorus teacher is 38 years old, Joshua David Johnson, was accused of sexually assaulting a student at the school. So,
how does that happen? Like, why? This is why I advocate for cameras.
Well, right. Or having a cell phone there, right? But every case is different. So that's the problem. Here's one from a very popular high school, Harding High School. It's one of the biggest high schools in Charlotte. I mean, the teacher's a cute teacher, right? Looks like she's
in high school.
It does not look like this is my point, people. These people do not look like they would be doing these things. A lot of them that we're going to talk about tonight. She's accused of having sex with a 16-year-old student. This guy in a middle school. Okay, Columbia
teacher.
Yeah. Well,
do they have the same qualifications? A substitute?
I looked that up, and I'll tell you, every county is different. Okay. Some counties, like in Gaston County, will hire an 18-year-old.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But this guy, let me tell you about him. Fayetteville Police Department charged him, his name's Brandon Camartry, with multiple felony level charges. During last school year, a student who attended the middle school where he taught from 2021 until September. So look, a lot of these teachers, you pointed out, I mean, they are substitute teachers, but they've also been there for a long time. So it could be we think back in the day, we had a sub maybe 2 days a week, right? If a teacher was out or
Yeah.
some of these subs are staying in for long term, like a
Oh, yeah.
month or.
They're basically teachers that are listed as substitutes.
Yeah, they are. Maybe the pay structure is different. To your point, the qualifications are different. So every county, to answer your question, I wish I could answer it better, is different.
I wondered about that because I know here the qualifications are, they pretty much say you have to have been a teacher here. That's how it is. And have some kind of certifications. But not every county's like that, because I know 2 counties over, they're not like that.
Not every county is like that. So here's a teacher. Again, a lot of these teachers look like the teachers that we see every day, right? The teachers that we know, et cetera, do not look like criminals, but sometimes they don't. So this is another sub in Catawba County.
And there's another student?
Yeah. Charged with statutory rape of a 15-year-old. And again, these are things that we don't normally equate with teach. We don't want to, but over the last 4 years that I've been reporting, we've been forced to be faced with a reckoning.
So Sloan, one question I have about all of these: do substitute teachers get put on the teacher list in Raleigh? In the DPI?
Well, you're talking about the DPI registration, right? So what that is, guys, is a public portal where you can go and look at typically a regular teacher. So I don't know that substitute teachers are listed. I'm going to say they're not, unless they have a license. So if they have a license, you can go ahead to the DPI website and look them up by name and find out if their license is current or it's been suspended or pending or.
But if they're a substitute, what kind of background checks are done? Do we know?
We don't know, but let's talk about some legislation. So for the third time in the last 4 years, Republicans in the House have put up legislation that says in every county, it's mandatory that there's a background check of all school staff. So it's never gotten out of the House, guys.
So you're telling me the janitors don't have a background check? That people can work in schools right now in North Carolina with no background check?
What I'm telling you is it goes county by county. So I don't know. Cumberland County, I don't know. Catawba County, I do know. And they do have background checks. So again, it's every county is dependent. Now, I want to also tell you that it doesn't really matter for some of these, because some of these are going to be first-time people, right? They're going to be, they haven't committed a crime. They haven't done anything yet. So they wouldn't have a record.
Right.
So that wouldn't actually apply.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't matter what the record is. I don't think if you have any record, you should be around kids. To me, you're supposed to be a model citizen.
What I'm saying is, up until the point that these teachers committed a crime, it's possible they were a model citizen, right? So, so again, now we come again to we're going to come to how books influence that, right? How the agenda in the school is conducive to these things happening. Because when you see some of the books, the stuff we're putting up tonight,
it's not just books.
You're going to know what we talk about. Yeah.
I think some of the schools just kind of don't pay attention.
Well, I don't know. It's hard to get down. And I mean, we're looking at things on a system level.
Yeah.
Policy system level. So when we talk about a state level, we have a de facto teachers union who is far left Marxist, wants to sexualize children. Here's them at one of their rallies. Is this someone that you want in your classroom?
I don't know, but I just don't understand why they need a union. How hard is their job? I don't want them wearing that shirt to school. That's for damn sure.
Well, yeah. So this is actually what we're looking at. So the NCAE, look at their logo. I mean, does this scream Marxism to you?
That screams Marxism. Absolutely, 100%.
So, like, not all teachers belong to the NCAE, to be clear, but a lot of the left-wing ones, I mean, look, we've got, over 1,000 teachers, right? 1,500, something in the neighborhood of that. 10% of them being radicalized, and another, 5% of those being sexual predators. We have a serious epidemic here.
They're not forced to join it because we're a right to work state, right?
Yeah.
But are they heavily pressured to join? Do you know?
I don't. But I've not heard they are. Yeah.
I know here, nobody here cares. They don't do it. You know, the redder your area is, the less they feel the pressure to do it. I just didn't know if in like Raleigh and Wake Forest, you know, it's different everywhere.
You know, there's no discernible benefit to being part of it, but you know, there will regularly protest. Love to protest, right? So they'll regularly protest, and you know, they'll even take strikes. Yeah. So look at this. This is a protest during a school day, guys. What they'll do, and this really pissed me off when I had my kids in public school, they would close the school down. And one time they did it 5 times in one freaking year. I think it was the first time that Trump won the election.
So if they close the school down, is that considered like a snow day? You got to make it up?
You know, I don't know actually how that works, right? I don't know.
They should get their pay docked if they do that.
Well, they don't, because the administrators are full in on it too.
I know, but they're not teaching. Yeah. They're not doing their job.
Exactly.
And they already get all summer's off, every weekend off, you know, every holiday off. You know, if you're going to take one of the days off that you're supposed to be working and protest, you shouldn't be paid for it, period.
Well, I totally agree. And what I'll tell you is this. This is the group that says believe all teachers. This is the group that wants to sexualize children. This is the group that says, how dare you check our records? Who do you think you're dealing with?
You should be drug tested too. We shouldn't just check your
Absolutely. Records. Yeah. Don't tell us there are no groomers in school. We just showed you 4.
That's right. I want some drug testing too. I think, you know, if I have to be drug tested, they should have to be too.
I mean, I think everyone would feel better with that. I think everybody would feel a lot better with that. And so, you know, that's what we're up against here, guys. I mean, the Democrats want to tell us believe all teachers. Teachers are all wonderful across the board. There's no grooming going on, etc. Who are you going to believe? You are your lying eyes, right?
Well,
who are you going to believe? Them or your lying eyes?
And I think COVID brought home, like, are they really teaching? I'm not bashing all teachers.
Yeah,
but there is some element of it. You know, what are we getting for our money?
Well, I think a lot of people are having that, and that's why this is such a great discussion about Doge, and cutting the budget. Right? Is that there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse, and teachers are wanting more money. I mean, we're going to have that discussion. So let's go on into our segment on school boards. We have a segment called School Board Watch, and boy, do we have a story for you.
Oh, karma! It's a real.
There is a. Thank God they're okay. I'm going to tell you that ahead of time. So in Davidson County, right, that's in the enclave of Charlotte, really, there is a school board member who claims to be Republican, right? Claims to be
First look at a DWI crash involving a now former Davidson County school board member.
Listen to what happened to her.
One of the victims shared these pictures with us today. Troopers say Ashley Carroll hit another driver head on along Highway 109 Wednesday night. 2 people in the other car, including a 14-year-old girl, suffered serious injuries. The school district confirms the teen was a student within Davidson County schools. Carroll is facing several charges, including DWI. She resigned from that school district and the school board yesterday.
Okay.
So much to talk about here. First of all, she had a child in the car. I'm thankful the child is okay. That's first and foremost.
Open container, so it's clear she's got a drug problem.
I don't want to speculate on that. You may know more about her than I do. I do know that in the past,
anyone who gets a DUI with an open container has a drug problem. I don't care if it's for that evening or if it's episodic or whatever. By definition, you have a drug problem if you've been arrested for it and injured someone, even for the night.
Right. Well, here's the saddest part of this.
Yeah,
I know you know her from some things and campaigning with her in the past. And I know who she is because I was working on a story with Leah McGee, whose son Christian went to Central Davidson High School and was suspended for racism for asking the teacher to clarify, did she mean alien as in outer space alien or illegal alien with a green card? And we came together knowing that we're finding out about this woman together, knowing you know her and I know who she is, because this is the same school board member who resisted helping Leah McGee and her family.
Well, here's what she did
during the suspension, and she was quite rude.
Here's what she did. She sent people, including me, disparaging things that Leah, the mother of this son, because all for the crime of this parent complaining that she thought her son faced unfair treatment. This Ashley Carroll disparaged Leah and reported that she had been to jail for drugs in the past, the way past. I thought it was unseemly, and I gave those text messages to the defense. Let me play something from Leah. She was on Fox and Friends after this and kind of explained what happened to her son and why she's suing now.
Anderson responded by saying, no, this is a big deal. These words do carry weight. So at the end of the day, Christian was suspended 3 days out of school suspension. He missed several very important track meets. And since that time, we have removed him from the school.
Look at that right there. On the write-up, it says in his permanent records, guys, and you know how this is when you're in high school. Very, very important to your child. Christian, who's his son, made a racially insensitive comment in a class today at an alien needing a green card. The child asked, do you mean an alien from space or an alien with a green card? That is what the child did. So let her go on.
I asked the school to handle this privately for weeks. I've emailed the school board for 4 weeks. I've had no response from the school board. And since, we had no resolution, we had no other choice but to file a lawsuit.
So here's what happened, guys. She went in front of the school board, as she said, and in response, Ashley Carroll, who sits on the school board, went on an attack of personal destruction
against Leah McGee and her family.
Because Leah she's been a godsend. People make mistakes all the time. She paid her dues. She helps others who are battling addiction.
Okay, so one ironic piece about this whole story is that Ashley's accident happened a year to the day that they suspended Christian. Talk about some karma.
Well, I know, again, I'm happy that everyone's okay. No one delights in these things.
No.
But I think when you're sitting on a school board, one of the key things, and I put people in school boards all across the state. I've been doing this for years. One of the key traits you need to have is compassion for other parents. If this had happened to your kid, would you go on a campaign of personal destruction against a mother complaining? No, you would not.
Well, I feel like I just know Leah very well, and she has been very compassionate and open on her Facebook about the situation and constantly asks about the child, more than anything asks about the child. Yeah. But here's where I see something positive coming from this. I know Leah would be the kind of person to suggest or help Ashley figure out where to go for treatment.
If you've got a drug and alcohol problem and it's endangering your family, you know, that is a problem, and you definitely need to get help for that.
Right.
So, so we wanted to give you a follow-up because we've been covering that story. We've been covering a lot, and unfortunately there is an update, and it's not a great one. And so we're wishing everybody in the family, good luck. But listen, never say never. Never say that somebody's a bad person because they've had struggle with drug and alcohol use, and it could happen to you.
Yes.
That's the moral. The
moral of the story. And there's also an open school board seat in Davidson County. And if right you want us to help you, let us know.
We'll get you elected. All right. Propaganda Files, another segment. We're going to move Leah from here. Listen, we've been hearing bullshit about book bans. Look, here's how the AP covered it. Here's how Charlotte News and Observer covered it. I thought WRAL did a decent job here. NC bill banning books with sex descriptions. Okay, yeah. So they did a decent job. This is in the Fayetteville Disturber. This is what they don't want. Yeah, this is what they don't want you to see. This is just one. I mean, I really struggle with showing this stuff.
It should be a struggle because this is not. Look, the outside cover of that book looks like it could be a normal book, like Beverly Cleary, any of those books we read when we were kids. But when you open it up, it is nothing like that.
Yeah. It's pretty bad. So this is the truth they don't want you to know. This is the stuff that they do not want you to put in there. Now, I have gotten a little flack, just a little, about a show that we did 2 weeks ago, but damned if I wasn't right. So this is a show that we did a couple weeks ago, but we were talking about bills meant to protect children from incendiary material in the library. Here we go. Basically, age appropriate stuff in the library. You can't put things about giving blowjobs or anal. And I'm not being rude. These are the things that are in our school. These are the things that are in some of our schools. So the law is, transparent by, putting library content online. The thing I love, that I love it. Okay. So
what happened? What came to fruition?
People were mad because I said butt plugs. So, that's here's the tea. We're going to spill the tea on this. So, we had Reverend John Aminchuku, who went up to the General Assembly last week, where this bill was being passed with protecting children from incendiary material in the library. And lo and behold, he met a teacher who identifies herself as queer, and she was damn mad about banning butt plug books. Just like I told you there was. Listen to the conversation.
Couples use butt.
Hang on. I got to get this off. All right, they keep changing this.
Do you think that just butt plugs is what we're discussing? So I'm saying that teaching children, minors, about this is disgusting.
Right. So I guess that comes into abstinence-only education versus safe
sex. It's not abstinence only. It's not safe sex. Because at the end of the day, a butt plug is not going to create a child. It's not going to have an issue on a person as relates to them catching an STD, unless the actual butt plug is not properly sanitized.
Exactly, and I think that's what that book was detailing, is how to safely use those instruments.
We don't need to educate children on how to use butt plugs. Children, if you're an adult and that is what you want to do, if that's what.
So this is happening. Exactly what I said was happening is happening.
And I think the sad part is, first of all, that person doesn't have children. They don't, because first of all, they said they didn't in the video. Yeah. But they want to subscribe to your child what is appropriate for your child when they have no idea what raising a child is like.
Well, since this is a teacher, what it is the government getting in between you and your child to teach whatever the hell they want to teach.
Well, and that went to the Supreme Court today. The government getting in between you and your child and what you believe your child should learn. And I have confusion about this because in some instances we're being told parental rights rule. In the Guilford County, when that kid got the COVID shot against his will, parental rights prevail, right? We are getting mixed messages on this issue, and it's really bothering me.
Well, look, if your child steals a gun from you, God forbid, and committed a crime, God forbid, you can bet your ass you'd be held responsible.
Absolutely. So it's my responsibility to put that gun in a place where they can't get a hold of it.
Correct. Right. But again, it's the parent's responsibility. But the parent has no responsibility when it comes to deciding when and where and how they're going to learn sex education, or when and where and how they're going to learn about butt plugs, for God's sakes. I didn't even know what that was until recently.
I didn't either. I didn't want to. I don't need to. And I certainly don't want children to know about that.
Well, of course not.
I think that we have over-sexualized every component of a child's life, from what they wear, what they watch, now what they're learning. And it's really alarming.
Well, if you take just purely the taxpayer argument, why are we paying for this garbage, right? So even if you're a kind of conservative or kind of person, you don't have children, you don't like them, you don't, et cetera. Why are kids getting dumber, but they're learning about butt plugs?
Well, and when my daughter was in school, they allowed us to check them out. If I didn't want her to attend those classes, she didn't have to. But that is not I don't believe that that's an option in North Carolina at this point. It may be up to the school district.
Yeah, no, it's not. You can opt out. The problem is they're not teaching this in a sex ed class, Margot. They're teaching it in a social studies class
or a literature
math class. They're teaching it in literature class. They're featuring it in a library. So they're finding a way, or a social emotional learning component, right?
So you got to just opt out of school if you don't want your kid around all this garbage.
And then you get to the argument of, why am I paying for this? Why are we paying for schools, right? But again, let's go back for a second. Let's go back to the people that we saw, God forbid, in these scenarios where they have been arrested. Don't you think that teaching lessons about butt plugs, blowjobs, vibrators, whatever you're teaching, it's sexually permissible. It's permissible. It could even arguably be part of the lesson plan. Would it not make a relationship, an inappropriate relationship, would it not make it easier if you're people?
100% yes. And the fact that the lines are getting crossed this often, this is just in 1 week or so. The fact the lines are getting blurred that often across the state is alarming.
It's alarming, but if you have tendencies where you're, and I'm just putting this out there, if you're attracted to children or minors or whatever, wouldn't you want to go get a teaching license? Or here's a funny idea, be a substitute where you don't have to have a teaching license. Wouldn't that be the place that you'd be drawn to?
That's one part of it that's absolutely terrifying. The other part of it is, how many of those kids don't tell? How many kids don't tell?
One of these kids, one of these instances was a kid that went to a counselor after months of alleged abuse.
Well, and then there's others that just don't tell at all. And some don't even recognize what it is, because if you don't know what abuse is, you don't know how to say, I was abused.
If you're talking about inappropriate things like what I've just named, if you're talking about that, what you're doing is you're lowering barriers, right? Like if you go from zero to talking about that, kids are going to know that's inappropriate.
Right.
If you soften the ground and teach more about it every day, et cetera, and everyone else is accepting, children's brains aren't really developed. A person's brain isn't until 21. It's where the frontal lobe gets fully developed. Then they can make decisions about right and wrong, et cetera. So, there's inundating a 14-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old. We've seen flashcards for 6-year-olds where it has pictures of pregnant men, allegedly pregnant men on them.
That's just not appropriate, period. End of story.
It's sexualizing children. And so I think we're putting a finer point on this, guys, because there's so much BS in the media right now about book banning. They don't want to talk about exactly what we've been talking about and what we've shown you.
And it's not just book banning. It's who has the authority to decide what a child is able to see. And that remains the responsibility of a parent.
We believe
not a teacher, not a librarian, not a principal.
Correct. Yeah, we believe so. And I can guarantee you these freaks, and they are absolute freaks on the Democrat side who want to do this to children. I'll bet you by damn if there were right-wing Christians teaching in a school, and those are the schools they were going to, I bet you by damn they've switched to our side of the aisle like that.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I think this is one issue. If it was presented appropriately, moderate Democrats would agree with Republicans.
Moderate Democrats do agree with Republicans behind closed doors because I talk to them all the time.
Right.
They don't want this stuff. When we bring up examples of this, they cringe and they have no argument. The problem is we're not bringing up these salient examples enough. We need to bring them up. We need to bring them up frequently, and we need to talk about it. And we also need to talk about the correlation between this woman
and these other
going into a school. This is an alleged. She has not been convicted, guys. This woman who did an alleged crime, right? And these others, if you're making it possible, here's another substitute. And they hear that you can teach about this stuff. And they hear that you can talk about this stuff. And they hear that you can do this stuff. We need to talk about that. You guys need to get this out and talk about it all the time.
I just have a problem when I read those headlines when it says a student. Is there really just one student? You know what I mean? That really that really hurts my heart, because usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And if you try it with one, you'll try it with more than one.
Or you'll
never know.
You'll get caught a long time after.
Right. But you'll never know if they don't tell.
Right. To be fair, I think a lot of schools that I've worked with and heard of, there are a lot of conservative school boards all across the state because of the work that we've done here with Education First Alliance. We've flipped many school boards. We won many races. All that is to say, there are a lot of very caring people on school boards who have set policies at the county level that would support safety. But they have shared with me that usually when someone gets caught, there are an average of 3 victims. They'll run through several.
Oh, that breaks my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And in Lee County, as you're well aware, they've had extensive problems there. New Hanover County, they've had extensive problems, but their school board never did the right thing.
No, but he finally quit. The guy that really allowed a lot of these things to take place finally quit. I think when you look at it, if there's 3 known, the 3 that we know of, like in the pattern, there's probably 2 we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, there can be. The exception would be with a substitute. A substitute would be a little different. So that would be the exception. Well, look, we're waiting for Jake Novak to come on, and he's going to talk about the Supreme Court case today. Do we hear anything from that? What was the verdict? Are we still waiting?
I have not seen a verdict. Last I saw, I was watching Jonathan Turley's feed this morning, and they were actually deciding, should they actually do this or should they not rule on it? And I was like, come on.
Okay, so they may not.
Yeah, it appears that they may not.
Okay, this is a little while ago at the Supreme Court. A lot of protesters there. And this is what they are saying is the same thing that the left always says, the same thing that they're saying here, etc. They're saying, oh, you want to ban books. Oh, you want to single out. Yeah, you want to single out gay people. Oh, you want to do this. It's not. It's about parental rights.
It's about child pornography.
It is.
The truth of the matter is, this is about kiddie porn.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, because and I can argue it this way. The pictures that we showed you from before, those pictures, if they were not drawn, if they were actually pictures of people in the bed doing stuff, they'd be arrested right away. But because they're drawn, they consider it artwork.
It's still depicting the same crap.
Yeah, it's still depicting the same crap. It's still absolutely wrong. In this case, can you tell us a little bit about what the case is about?
Oh, it's about the Montgomery County, Maryland school system and parents not allowing their child to an LGBTQ times 10 inclusive story time. And the parents want the right to opt out. And the counsel for the teacher or for the schools says, well, we don't allow opt out. So they're going to court to get the right to opt out of this LGBTQ story time, which is ridiculous if you think about it, because if I were, and they also did say, one of the things they said is they have had multiple parents just pull their kids out of school the days of, and they didn't like that. So they're trying to figure out a way around it. But the lawyer for the Montgomery County, he's making the argument that they should have to sit through this, that this should be mandatory.
So it should be mandatory. There's no opt out. I'm not sure that's going to hold. There's been a couple of cases like that across the country. In North Carolina, you can opt your child out for sex ed, which is why they put it into social emotional learning
or story time.
Right.
Into story time. Sex ed. But here's what I thought was interesting in the argument. Judge Kavanaugh says, well, I just can't believe this is happening in that school system. My kids went to school there. His kids went to school there probably 20 years ago at the least. So it appears to me we have a bunch of judges that, first of all, want to use their life experience. Secondly, believe that things have not changed at all. It was very alarming to hear him say that on the record.
It is alarming. It's not, the case isn't about him by definition. It's about what's happening now in the present. I'm surprised to hear him say something like that. But so guys, we will keep an eye on that case. But now we're going to move to Harvard. I'd really hoped that we would have Jake here, but I guess something might be keeping him. but we'll wait another second. So we've covered. The interesting thing is Harvard went ahead and said, we're going to sue the federal government. So last night they came out with a statement, Margot, that said, okay, you're going to cut off our funding for a lot of things. There was a letter that the Feds sent a letter on Friday night, Trump administration, and said, look, you failed on some of these Title VI things. You failed
Title IX.
Yeah. They wanted viewpoint discrimination and a couple of other things. And so on Monday, predictably, Harvard came out and they said, well, we're going to sue, and said something along the lines of, academic freedom. We're going to uphold academic freedom, et cetera, which is ridiculous for several reasons. And I'll eliminate that. I mean, this is what we're looking at here. This is not only people traipsing through campus wearing pro-terrorist garb, it's also,
and masks. Don't forget the masks, because they try to hide themselves.
Well, here they are. This is them in front of the library. I'm going to show you in a second what the library looks like without that. But look, they've all got masks on.
Of course.
That's what it typically looks like. That's me, 2007.
I know.
Here is what it looks like. So they've got masks, not allowed. So Jake, what do you think of this? This is Jake, welcome.
Thank you.
This is what
you, Jake.
This is what Harvard Widener Library should look like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Been there many times.
This is after.
Yeah. I've been there many times. One of the things that I think there's some well-meaning people out there who are still misinformed, who think this is just another anti-Vietnam protest. They think it's just students kind of, maybe I don't agree with what they're saying and with their goals, but it's really just free speech, and some of them have gone a little too far. And what they don't understand is that these protests we're seeing on these campuses right now, and they really shouldn't be called protests. You've heard me say this before. They're attacks. A protest is meant to change people's minds, made to maybe get an election to go your way, something like that. That's not the goal. The goal here is to disrupt and to attack and to inflict pain on those who are in the surrounding area. And what they don't understand is that a lot of the people who are involved in these attacks are paid agents to do so. They have been trained and taught, and they've been given marching orders which I published publicly back not long after October 7th, because someone accidentally sent out their little marching orders at all these schools. So people need to understand that this is not an organic protest. And by the way, a lot of the anti-Vietnam War protests on campuses in the 60s were also
not
arranged by communists.
But to your point, that was protesting public policy. Yeah. These aren't even BDS. When you're talking about public policy, something that can be altered and changed and owned by the American people, this is ephemeral to public policy at all. It is unmistakably, when you're saying no Zionists allowed, when you're saying, globalize the Intifada, when you're saying we are Hamas, these are slogans that are said regularly. That is a pro-terror ideology. That is a full frontal assault. Now I'm going to put up here on Linda McMahon. I want to get you to weigh in on this. I think she succinctly said it best last week when she was interviewed.
It's clear. We're not.
Oops, hang on. Sorry, I'm getting used to this new software we've got. It's beyond comprehension
at all. I think that on college campuses, there should be open debate. There should be room for disagreement and all of that. But what I'm talking about are civil rights violations and safety for these students who are on campus. And the president just said he's not going to allow it in terms of those universities that are receiving federal dollars. And he's being very firm about that.
Okay.
Right.
I like it.
I mean, I don't think there were civil rights violations also going on during the anti-Vietnam War protests, because they weren't now there were classes disrupted. In fact, there were entire semesters that were blown out of the water, but they weren't targeted at a specific group of students, right? I mean, first of all, there weren't large numbers of students who were supporting the war anyway, but if there had been, and there were some, like the ROTC guys, they weren't specifically going after them. Sometimes they got into fights, but that's because they were mixing it up. In other words, they weren't going and searching for their dorm rooms, going to their areas. Like they're going to the Hillel, which is just a Jewish. It's basically The Hillel is like a synagogue sometimes because they have services there. Sometimes it's a place where they eat meals. It's not a political
Here's
organization.
what I'll tell you about Harvard Hillel, because I went there and I went to Harvard Hillel. Very non-political, actually pretty far left. The thing that really, I think, sent over the edge, I mean, they're going to have a real problem here. They're going to have two problems. First of all, I think the core argument is going to be this. Has Harvard violated Title VI, made Title VI violations or not? And here's how they have, I think, in two seminal ways. First of all, it will be found that they have not done enough to protect Jewish students. For instance, Hillel wanted to do, as they always do, a menorah, right, during Hanukkah.
Right.
And they told, this is when Claudine Gay was there, and the Hillel was told, okay, great, you can do it, but then you have to pack up your stuff at the end of the night and then bring it back out there because we can't protect you. So that one instance is going to get them. So Title VI is one. Also, there's strong evidence that the Supreme Court case where they lost their ass on for the admissions, they're also not fulfilling that. So they're going to lose that core argument. But here's the thing. How many times has Obama and actually Biden sent dear colleague letters that were so onerous for every single learning institution to follow, that were so absurd? I mean, for instance, letting Margot boys onto the girls' teams. The dear colleague letter that basically created a star chamber for young men who were just accused of sexual assault. They pretty much got convicted. That was under Obama. So this idea that it's just so crazy for the government to make so many demands on a school is pure bullshit. They have no problem complying when it's a dear colleague letter from a far left lunatic serving as president.
Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious. I mean, the most insulting part of this whole thing is that the fact that they're getting away with, in some corners, saying that they're standing up for free speech here. When Harvard has been ranked last in the country year after year in being a place that was friendly to free speech. And the thing that's even more insulting about this is, as we all know, and rightfully so, by the way, let me say this as a way of not complaining because I would be in favor of this. We all know that if these were Black students who were being treated in this way, if these were gay and lesbian and trans students being treated this way, if these were Latino students being treated this way, pretty much everyone but the Jews, the Asian Americans, and maybe some Indians, they would be treated, this would absolutely be cut off at the knees. This would never have been allowed. And everybody knows it. And the lie that they expect us to swallow with this is just so, it's really insulting. And we've seen this pattern over and over again. You might remember there was an African-American professor at Oberlin College years ago who had written tons of anti-Semitic stuff on her social media pages. And the then Jewish president of Oberlin wrote a letter to everyone saying, like, well, I don't agree with what she said, but we have to stand up for free speech. Yeah, obviously, if that had been a white professor saying that about Black students, we all know
what would have
and
happened.
Again, that would never have been allowed, and they would have been fired immediately. And and the fact that they really ask us to they insult our intelligence and our sense of fairness every single day with this ridiculous pushback. I mean, they're asking to be applauded and lauded in the public right now, and people are falling for it. I see it on my Columbia alumni page. Boy, I wish Columbia was more like Harvard. They're not standing up for anything.
Please kill me.
Right. They're not standing up for anything. It's a disgrace. We all know that there are, I mean, this is what happens. You know, in Germany, they had something called the Nuremberg laws. They were passed over a long period of time in 1935. And it was a sickening convention where they basically wrote all different levels of racial purity and different kinds of I mean, they had a whole like periodic table. It looked like the periodic table of what the best races were. That is what our university admissions and culture is now like. Who's the racial minority that we care about? Who's the one that we don't? Who is?
They care about us.
It's sickening. It takes a lot of work. You know, I mean, if you're just going to use the word minority, then all I need to do is math. But it isn't about minority. Jews are a smaller minority in this country than any of these so-called minorities out there. So,
well, that's Margo. You were stunned. You were stunned to know that we make up 0.02% of the worldwide population. You were stunned.
I was.
Yeah.
But I was also proud to find out that in North Carolina, there's a larger contingent of Jewish individuals than there are of Muslims legally. So, I mean, you know, what's interesting about that is, well, I didn't know it until today. And here's what happened. I happened to see a TikTok video that was floating out there that basically showed the majority of the country is the second largest religion is Muslim. And I was like, I don't believe that. So I went and did the homework and did the actual review compared to what that TikTok said. And I ran the numbers in North Carolina, and that is absolutely not true, even though they classified it as North Carolina being a more Muslim state than a Jewish state. And so I just want, and one thing I would say, and it's related to this story, don't believe everything you hear or see, especially on TikTok, because it's mostly not true.
Well, as far as you've hit on something, and I'm not going to run away from it. Arab nations under Obama were giving a disproportionately higher number of F1 visas. That's a fact. That's one of his seminal changes.
Correct.
Because I was at Harvard in 2007. I didn't have any problems at all. And then it started to really come on strong 5 years later, once that kicked in. In other words, we were telling students who were qualified, right, in European nations, for instance, or maybe in Japan or wherever, you know what? No, we're going to have a preference to bring in more students from Jordan. Egypt's a big one. So-called Palestine, right?
Pakistan.
Lebanon, right? And in other words, importing anti-Semitism, because it is an irrefutable fact. Jake, tell us, you know this too, that Muslims are born and raised as a central part of their religion to hate Jews.
Well, it's, I'll start with the good news first, being that, what we're seeing in now places like Saudi Arabia and some of the Gulf states, they are really working to reverse that.
They don't allow this stuff. They do not allow what we saw on the library steps. You'll be busted out on your ass.
Right. And starting in 2015, the Saudis started to erase the anti-Semitic stuff in their school books. They started to kick out the anti-Semitic and anti-American clerics. They have a lot of work left to do. And even though Saudi Arabia population-wise isn't as large as some of these other countries, it's basically the bank for all the Arab countries that are not aligned with Iran. So it has a lot of influence. There was a time when the three of us were born, I know we're different ages, Egypt was the most important Arab country because it still remains the largest populated Arab country. But they have no money, and they've lost a lot of and they have no oil really. So they've really lost a lot of their influence. They have some oil, but not much. Well, so the Saudis really, it's between Saudi Arabia and Iran is pushing this hatred.
Qatar is a player as well.
Well, Qatar is trying to dance at all weddings, but at the end of the day, Qatar is more aligned with Iran, which is why Saudi Arabia and Qatar broke their relations. They officially mended them, but that was only official. There's no relationship between them. And that's very telling. But yes, listen, and here's something I want to say that will be surprising to you. It's actually not part of their religion. It's part of their culture, and there's a difference. Because whereas Jews were always second-class citizens in the Muslim world, there was never a genocidal, hateful attitude towards them that pervaded in anywhere other than a village or two. It became a national policy because of the literal Nazis. And I write about this a lot. The Nazis in the late 20s, when they weren't even in control of a government yet, found out about the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and took an understandable interest in them. Ooh, here's a group that's genocidally interested in killing the Jews. And they funded them. They coached them up. The head of the Muslim Brotherhood in what was then Israel, what was then called Palestine, the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, was a guest of Adolf Hitler for the entire World War II. He must have stood out like a sore thumb in Berlin walking around with those robes and stuff, but he was actually a guest of his. And they taught them how to be modern day Jew haters. And we've got to get that influence out of there, but it's there.
I will agree with a couple of things you said. Look, the text is there. We arguably have bad text. Our Bible is full wall-to-wall murder. I get it. Yeah. You've got that, right? And you've also got the clerics. The clerics will drive folks to the text, and that will radicalize them. I will say that. But you cannot deny whatever the fact is. It is a material fact that in these countries, and I know because I know people from these countries, and they will tell you, whether it's Morocco, whether it's Lebanon, whatever, they're raised absolutely to go to the text because it is there. If you see a Jew behind a tree, go stone him. That is there. So the fact of the matter is, today we're bringing in and we're importing anti-Semitism. And so what I'm getting at is this: you've got a not insignificant amount of Arabs that we see on campus who are driving these things, which is important. Now we're getting into immigration policy. So now we're understanding, and I think Trump, this is very good for Trump. I mean, Trump ran on, tearing down the establishment, tearing down the education establishments, bringing down the educrats. This is a cannot lose for him. This is a liberal tier situation because they're hanging themselves in their own petard. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, that's the standard that they try to hold everyone else to. And now we're going to hang them on it. So this is politically a very, very good thing. They're going to lose, and they're going to lose bigly for the reasons I said. If you just strip it down, they've been down this road before, Jake. I mean, they lost the admissions case at the Supreme Court level. They're going to be 2 for 2 on the same thing. The core issue here is Title VI. There's another one. Margot, this is what you and I have talked about quite a bit, is in what world do you think you can sign up for a contract or a grant and there are no preconditions in it?
That's the reason you get a grant, because of the conditions that you agree to.
So you're getting an educational grant. Let's just say it's for medicine, because that's what they're squawking about the most. The conditions are that you do not discriminate. And
right.
So, that I think that's a weaker argument. I want to go the constitutional route, right? But as a matter of contract law, Jake, this free speech argument does not hold water, because any contract, I don't care if it's an NDA or an employment contract, it is possible and probable that you will have to condition your free speech. You have to condition speech as a condition of signing that contract. So whoever signed that grant knows that the speech they're conditioning is speech that's allowed about race, right?
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to a guy I went to high school with, and he's very, very good on explaining all of this. He's probably the best expert in this kind of civil rights law in America right now, what's going on the campuses. And you can follow him on X every day. His name is Professor David Bernstein. There's another guy named David Bernstein who's big on Twitter. It's not him. Professor David Bernstein from George Mason.
I met him
from Georgia. He went to high school with me. He was in my sister's class. He was a little bit older than I am, but I knew him real well. And I've actually seen him. It turns out we have a friend in common, so I see him anyway. He's really good at explaining how very explicitly Harvard and these other schools are breaking the law. So if you feel like you're at a cocktail party and you're going to run into one of your friends or family members who's going to say, like, look, I don't like the anti-Semitism, but you'll have armed with you, if you read his tweets, what you need to know about how they have explicitly broken the law. Not, they didn't do the right thing, or they're not. No, explicitly they have broken the law time after time again. And he really documents. And of course, I remember a lot of it too. And I could have told you that also, but he's a bigger expert. So you should take what he says with greater heft. He's excellent.
And you had Ben on 2 weeks ago, a friend of ours, who's also a Harvard trained lawyer. But again, I'm not a lawyer, but I did get an undergrad in legal studies from Harvard. But I will tell you that
on X every once in a while. I'm just kidding.
Well, I will say though that anybody that reads the admissions case says this is a blueprint for the ass whooping that's coming ahead of this. So just as we wrap up, I'm going to ask you to do something that I don't think is fair for me to ask you. What are Democrats thinking in dying on this hill?
Why?
Well, that's the perfect. And I ask this on my show every single day, and I have some strong theories about it. Some that I think are really grounded in facts that I can prove, and some that aren't. But one is, you have to understand, and I've been saying this for a long time, the reason why the Democratic Party is so off the rails right now is because no one is actually working for themselves in the party. As Milton Friedman said, the greatest achievements in humankind have come from people going after their own selfish self-interest. So we shouldn't be so upset at people who are selfish sometimes. The DNC, the Central Committee of the Democratic National Party, is in control of every elected member of any body who is a Democrat right now. And there's a couple of people they forgot to take care of, like John Fetterman. They thought that he was too mentally disabled, and so they forgot to put a bunch of pressure on him and put people in his office. Kathy Hochul, I mean, I get list all these people who are dying on crazy hills. And the trans thing, which you're talking about, is the biggest one. This is one that has 80% disapproval rating.
That's another one.
Dying on this hill. So what are they doing? Why are they doing this? Because the DNC can't just call and threaten them. They got to have something more than just a phone call. The DNC is saying, we will make sure that no one donates to your campaign. We will make sure that you are primary. We will make sure that the people who have donated to your campaign will ask for the money back and do it so publicly that it'll be very embarrassing. And we will make sure that all of your staffers walk out on you, and you're going to have a situation where you're going to be up in front of that teleprompter and there ain't nothing going to be on there.
We've seen
That's
that
what's going on.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. And the same thing is happening to the DNC from their big donors who are telling them, we're not going to donate to the Democratic National Committee. But there's another thing going on about dying on a hill, because do they really care about trans people? Do they really care about Harvard having the freedom to? No. What they care about is power. Think about it. What is more powerful than being able to tell a parent, I'm more powerful about the decisions of your child than you are? That's something that every dictator, totalitarian regime has always wanted. What was child sacrifice about in the ancient times? Did they really think that there was a God who was going to be placated by the murder of a child? No. It was the high priest of that city-state who was like,
oh, where did Jake go?
Oh my God, we were just getting somewhere. Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Now you gotta
I can
finish
take
it.
away
You
your
gotta bring us
child
up.
from you. I can take away your child from you. How do you like that? The Soviet Union taught children from early days in kindergarten, if your parents aren't touting the line of communism, you inform on them here. And they were told that so often that some of them did. So
Well,
that was that.
And just
So
recently,
that's
Jake,
what this is about.
just recently, they started talking about how bad pets are. Like they will take anything from you that you may love.
Yes. So this is about power. And the thing about power is people who start getting it only want more. You know, Mikhail Gorbachev, when the whole thing was going on in the Soviet Union, put it really well. He said, like, you know, asking someone to give up money, even if they are a billionaire, is easier than asking someone to give up power. And it made me really think back then. This is 35 years ago, whatever it was. And I remember thinking, wow, that's probably true. You know, you have power over someone. You can ask them for their money. You can take their money from them. So power is more important than money for, you know, for people as far as what puts them on a ground of some kind. And that's what this is about. They don't care about the trans people. This is why it's so easy for someone like Gavin Newsom to suddenly do an about face on the trans stuff, because what he wants is power. And if he perceives that going the other way on trans stuff will get him more power, then he'll do that. And it's been true about all these other issues. Do you think that Barack Obama gave a rat's butt about gay marriage? He was against gay marriage until 2 years into his first term, and suddenly he's for it. He doesn't care about gay people. He doesn't care about trans people. It's possible sometimes he cares about some people, but that's not the point. The point is
he loves big
power.
money. I know.
Yeah, it's power. And I can't think of anything more powerful than some stranger to come knock on the door of a parent and say, I will now make the decisions about your child. I'm taking that away from you, because that's a God-given right and power and it's basically, it's a war. It's kind of a war against God. That's really what it is.
We've always said that. Well, we're going to keep this. This is a conversation we're going to keep seeing. We've had these battles from the state level into the federal level. We're going to keep an eye on the Supreme Court, see if they take up this case, exactly what you're talking about. We're definitely going to be waited with bated breath to see this Harvard case. We're definitely going to own the libs on this. So those of you that love making them cry, we're going to hang them on their own petard, guys. We're going to get them. So where can we catch your show?
Oh, thank you. So I'm in Real America's Voice, which is available on all the streamers, Netflix, not Netflix. You can see it on Amazon Prime. You can see it on X. It streams live on X every day. Real America's Voice is called American Sunrise Early Edition. And if you follow my X feed at JakeNY, I post that link every day to the show, which is, by the way, a forever link. You don't have to wake up at 7 a.m. to watch it, but I'm on from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. If you like to sleep in, you can click on my Twitter feed and find it and watch it anytime you want to watch it. But it's also on the America's Voice, the Real America's Voice website live. You can watch it on a lot of different platforms.
Pluto TV. We love Pluto. So
yeah,
also
Pluto.
If you're really, really lucky, you can catch Jake in the Punch Bowl after he does.
There you go. What time and where?
8 to 11 on X. Just look for the Punch Bowl. Follow me. You can find me there from 8 to 11 every day. And Jake comes in generally around 9 o'clock, somewhere in that area. And we always try to catch him on the stage and give him a topic. And he's very good about taking questions and, you know, educating people on different things. And really, if you love movies or books, come to the Punch Bowl, because Jake will give you great books and movies.
Yeah, the movie I'll suggest to you, based on what you're talking about today, A Man for All Seasons. For my Catholic friends, you probably had to see this movie in Catholic school, and if you didn't, you went to a crappy Catholic school. A Man for All Seasons is a short movie, well under 2 hours, and it talks about the lawfare. A Man for All Seasons is all about lawfare, well before the age of the Donald Trump. It's a great, great film. Not one wasted word in it. And this time of year, I really especially recommend it. But that's a good one to start if you want to see how this works, how this ends, how it works out for the people who are happy. It's happening already. But for the Letitia Jameses of the world, the Alvin Braggses of the world, they should see that movie especially, because that's what's going to happen to them if they continue to destroy the law.
All right.
Thank you, Jay.
Cool. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night.
Evening.
See you on Thursday. Bye, guys.
That's a wrap on today's NC Political Tea. We hope you're leaving sharper, spicier, and ready to take on the political craziness in the Tar Heel State. If you loved what you heard, or even if it made you mad, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this show with your friends, family, and that one coworker who just needs the truth. Follow us on social media to stay in the loop and get your daily dose of conservative fire. And remember, here in North Carolina, the grassroots grows stronger when we stand together. Until next time, keep the faith, keep up the fight, and don't let the left water down your tea. This is NC Political Tea, where we spill it like it is.